Hey everyone, and welcome to my talk on NX. Today we'll be talking about increasing developer productivity by a factor of n with NX, more than just a monorepo. This is a song of fire and not ice. We're going to be talking about a lot about fire as passion, and that's going to be a huge prevailing theme of this talk. So just a heads up on that. Going into our talk structure a little bit. We're going to break this talk up into 4 parts. First, I'm going to give you a little bit of my story with NX and my history. Then we'll talk a little bit about what is NX, a 10,000-foot view. Next, we'll talk about the specific components of NX, how you use it. And finally, we'll go into a section on empowering developers, empowering the community, how NX sets out to do that. So a few notes, too, on what this talk is and isn't. In many ways, this will give you a really great introduction to NX, everything we're trying to do, and how we're trying to do it. This will not get into sort of the nitty-gritties of, how does this actually play out. And you'll kind of have to take my word on some of the fire I'll talk about and some of the really cool integrations you can get as a result of using the NX tool set. But I'll also, towards the end of this talk, give some pointers to where you can get into the nitty-gritties. We've got step-by-step tutorials, video tutorials, free course available on NX, and a lot of other content like that available, and I'll give some links towards that towards the end of this talk as well. So without further ado, let's get into my story with NX. Alright, so my story starts in 2015. I was not in web development at the time. I got a late start. I tried going into another profession for a while and ended up seeing the light and coming to computer science. And in my first job, I was building IVRs, which if you're not familiar, if you ever call like a bank or a cable company or something like that, you don't get a person, you get sort of an automated system to start, and that's kind of what I was building. Those are what you called IVRs. So I was building this in Java and using a framework, kind of an old framework in Java that we built around, building these IVRs up with VXML, and also using Java server pages to build the admin web portals for an administrator to be able to configure, like, are we open right now? Can someone actually talk to an agent? Can't they? All that kind of configuration that goes on. So that was kind of what I was working on, and I knew just from working with the tool set that we had available to us that there had to be something better out there, that there was better tools available, and there's pieces of the frameworks I was working with that were trying to be something, and they weren't just quite catching on. And I think a lot of it is just it was kind of older technology we were working with, and so kind of understandable that it wasn't kind of up to snuff. But the defining characteristic of a lot of this work was friction. Just kind of feeling limited by the tools I was working with. They just weren't up to snuff, I guess you could say. Meanwhile, 2016 in September, Angular drops on the world. Victor Zabkin and Jeff Cross are on the initial team, the Nrwl founders, and they build Angular 2, and I kind of am parallel to this. I'm watching this because I'm kind of building some web stuff on the side, some web client stuff on the side, and Angular seems really cool. It seems like maybe it's that thing I thought it was, and it just so happened our company needed a way to develop a web app in Angular per contract that was way behind schedule, and I said, I volunteer, I'll do this because I really wanted to see if Angular was indeed what I thought it was. And the project succeeds, and I am validated personally. There is something better out there, and Angular is getting at it for sure. So it's at this point in my personal story where it's like the spark is starting to get lit. I'm starting my career. I'm seeing there must be something better out there, and I find it, and it's like some glimmer of hope of what my career could be and what my work life could be like. So in wanting to take some of that success and build on it, so We built a lot of cool stuff in our last project. It seems like we should be able to reuse all that. And just looking around the company we're at, there's only so many things you can do inside of an admin portal, right? So, and a lot of our projects were just starting over from scratch each time and building up this, because that's how we worked, and it leads to like sort of inconsistent quality, styling, theming, dependencies across all of our projects and products. And we're looking for ways to take this and make a better world. And we just happened to see Jeff Cross and Victor Savkin give a talk in NX, and we dove in. Like we full sail bought on. And so I get put in charge of the team. We start working on a company product while building an NX workspace. So the admin app for a company product, which is different from the projects we were working on, which were kind of like a client would ask for a specific work piece of software to be made, and we'd kind of make it for them. This is an alternative. Our company is building their own product to sell to other people, but it's the same stuff at the core. It's still just an admin portal. So we would go through and build up our common libraries while building the product with the goal of reusing them. And the crowning achievement is while we were working on the product, we kind of had a project that came up. Normally it would take us a couple weeks to do it all, and we were actually able to build it all in a week just by pulling in all the other libraries that we had built while building our product. So that was really cool. And the fire is definitely growing at this point. Like I'm seeing, okay, this stuff is real. It really can make you more effective. And yeah, so fire is growing, and it leads to the next chapter in my life where I get hired by Nrwl to start a new adventure. So a lot of my work now at Nrwl is doing consulting work, where as consultants we kind of cross-pollinate across all these different companies, and we work every day hands-on with NX, just from working with all of the people we consult with. And it's a really awesome team at Nrwl, and we also work with other awesome teams that hire us for consulting. And there's also a lot of really cool exposure that happens just from being exposed to other people and the project problems they have, and understanding, trying to get at how to solve them. And I think Nrwl does a really good job of turning this all into this well-oiled machine where each of these leads into another, and we use this all to build up NX. And right now I feel really inspired and really on fire and passionate about all the work I'm doing. So that's my story. I think it kind of parallels some of the stuff that gets into NX, but we'll get into that now. So what is NX, you may ask? So going back to the story, Angular drops onto the scene, and Angular brings with it a really cool tool set. Like a lot of what NX is, remember again, Nrwl is founded by Jeff Cross and Victor Savkin, who were on Angular team when they did their initial release. So a lot of the cool stuff about Angular comes from the CLI and the whole framework built around this, where it's actually it's a comprehensive, complete tool set with Angular. And this is part of what I was so attracted to when I saw it. It's like all the tools are already there and standardized and kind of set up for us, like to the point where Git is integrated with everything. And you have Karma and Jasmine for unit tests, and it's all integrated with the CLI, and same with Protractor for end-to-end tests. That's sort of the base that NX works with and builds on top of. And one of the first places it builds on top of is by providing some alternatives for unit testing via the Jest plugin, and end-to-end testing via the Cypress plugin. So in an NX workspace, you could still do Karma and Protractor if you prefer, but also if you prefer Jest or Cypress, you can also use those. And personal preference, I prefer both of those. So it's great for me. It's great for you too if you like it. But in addition to using this for Angular, Nrwl also supports first class React, Nest.js, Node, and Next.js. So other frameworks as well, back end and front end. And yeah, it's taking the same philosophy, the same design with the schematics and builders. That's pretty much what each one of these plugins are, is a collection of schematics and builders. And there's nothing specifically Angular about that if you really think about it. And we just kind of take that and bring that to across the other frameworks as well. So it's building on that fire and adding to it. Another way we add to it is with Storybook integrations. Storybook plugin allows you to generate Storybook applications instantly. For those of you who aren't aware, Storybook's kind of a way to isolate components and see them in sort of a standalone application where you can kind of mess with the inputs and outputs to your components and the dependencies and stuff like that. So our schematics are built around generating the scaffolding you'll need for Storybook just by saying add the Storybook plugin and generate some Storybook for this component library. And we even have some integrations between Storybook and Cypress, so you can automatically set up some Cypress tests against your Storybook app, which is very cool. Like we're building a bigger web, whereas Angular had a very comprehensive web. We're expanding on that fire, I think, at NX, and expanding on that fire even more is all the community plugins we drop in. So you'll see there's even some other languages here. And like it doesn't all have to be JavaScript, but there's all other JavaScript stuff. So all this stuff comes with their own builders and schematics, so you don't have to worry about this stuff because we got you covered. And so that's really cool. So that's yeah. Think about NX that way, sort of. It's bringing that fire across all of development, and I think that's really cool. But to get to what NX really is, I wanted to share this video because I think it's a really cool analogy, I think, to what NX is and to kind of what we do as engineers. So here's this guy. Here's this old guy. This is from Toy Story 2, so he's like I guess he's a doll repairing engineer. But just think of this as us, and we're here, and we say, I've come to build a feature for you. And this is our project manager. He's very happy to see us, and we're like, let's get to work. And we've got our little tool set here with us. So as we get started, we kind of set out the tool set and open everything up. And so this guy, he's an engineer with a very niche set of engineering skills. So he's probably made this whole tool set by himself. It's super impressive. Like you see, everything is super custom built to what he has or the tasks he needs to do. And he's got all these different drawers where he's built other tools and assets that he just knows how to work with. And so in a lot of ways, what NX is giving you this tool set that this guy's made and like put all of his attention and care into, and built this up over his career. We're trying to build that for you and give it to you. That's a lot of what we do. And this image right here that I've paused on is really what I wanted to focus on, because if you look at his face, like forget the project manager guy in the background, if you just look at the engineer, he is intently focused on his work and clearly engaged, I think, from the look at his face. And he's even got his glasses on right here, but he's not caring about his tools. He's caring about his work. He's intensely focused on that work. And all of his tools are almost like operating as an extension of himself, to where it's hard to see where the tool starts and the person begins. It's like a symbiotic relationship between those things. So that's in a large way, what NX is. And as he sets to his work, you'll see like seamlessly using his tools because they're so natural and so like second nature to him and the work he's trying to do. To the point where he's like, clearly he's using all of his tools very, very carefully and very specifically in all this, but it doesn't seem like he's working with the tools. It seems like he's doing his work. Like that's where all of his attention is at. And so that's very much what NX is trying to do. And as we can see, I think he's hired here to repair this cowboy doll's arm. But he ends up doing a bunch of other stuff, and finally he's getting to the work that he's actually set out to do. Maybe not that unlike us computer science engineers. He fixes the problem, does some final touches to his PR to make sure everything's looking good and up to snuff, deleting some comments here, I guess you could say, getting everything ready, and there we go. Out it goes, the PR to GitHub, and he's very happy with his work. So this is all what we're going for. This feeling of like intense satisfaction with the work you're doing, and being able to give you a tool set like the one he has, but one for free without having to spend the years he's probably had to spend, building out each drawer in his workspace, and painstakingly like going through each one of those. So we're just saying, here you go for free. Here's the tool set. Go out and do your work. Have fun. Let us know how it goes. It's kind of the NX philosophy. All right, so some scaffolding philosophy real quick I wanted to talk about. So one piece of NX, and this is something we get asked about sometimes, a core philosophy of NX is having unified dependencies. So in your workspace, you're going to have multiple applications and multiple libraries, and a big goal of this is to make sure you're on the same version across each. Make sure all of your tools are aligned. And this is like a core tenet to NX. If you take that analogy, if the guy had different versions of a tool, it wouldn't make much sense. Like I think that kind of ruins the synergy of everything that's going on with there. But that's the thing. So unified dependencies are a big piece of our scaffolding philosophy. And there's also apps versus libs. So an application, when you're developing an NX, would be something you could serve, something you can build. And there's actually not much code in these, aside from just importing other libs, other NX libs that you've created as part of your workspace. So that's kind of the core pieces of the scaffolding philosophy, where most of your code is actually in libs. So it's like the toy engineer isolating the doll and isolating different pieces of it that he wanted to work on at a time. That kind of builds into that, where each lib is maybe one small piece of focus that you could work on at a time, and then the application as a whole is just importing all these things together. So let's move on to the next section here, the specific components of NX. So the basic steps for when you're building an NX workspace. This probably will look very familiar to those of you who are familiar with Angular. You run a script to create a new NX workspace. For NX, it's npx create NX workspace. So it's kind of like a very akin to ng-new. But an additional step that we don't have really in the Angular CLI is installing additional plugins. So you can run nx list, and this will list for you all of the different plugins that are available to you, all of the plugins you're using at the moment, and also all of the community plugins as well. So it's kind of like if we think about our analogy with the old man and his tool set, like each one of these plugins is maybe a drawer inside of his big box there. And so we're saying, you can go ahead and install new drawers to your workspace by just by running this command to install that. And then inside of those drawers, you have your schematics, where you're running code generation, very similar to the Angular CLI. You just run nxg and then the name of the schematic you want to run. In this case, in this example, it's Nrwl Workspace library, and also very similar to the Angular CLI, serving or building a target or testing or linting. All those things work very similar to the Angular CLI as well. And for Angular, they actually do run the CLI. And the step 5 is then just passion. After that, these are really all the different pieces you need. And again, it's not specific to Angular, not specific to front-end development even, I believe. So that's kind of what NX is getting at. And so if we look at the NX core components, we've already talked about schematics and builders a good bit. If you're familiar with Angular, you're familiar with those, just in terms of what they do, code generation and running a target. But there's some additional core tools to NX as well, including Dependency Graph, the Computation Cache, and the NX console. And so we'll look at some of these new ones here now. So starting with the Dependency Graph. If you ever run in an NX workspace, NX depth graph, you get a new Chrome window will open up, and you'll see this just like you would if you were serving an Angular application. It's just you can run this in your local host, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about your workspace, which is really, really cool for visualization. Because normally, I think in a lot of repos, so not a workspace but a repo, kind of the architecture is maybe sort of like a napkin drawing from your architect. That if it is accurate on day one, it doesn't remain accurate very long. So by running this command, you can kind of have on-demand visualization to what your project looks like in terms of the dependencies across your different libs and applications as you develop on your workspace. So very cool as a tool just by that. But there's the dependency graphs goes beyond just visualization. So using affected. Here we're running nx affected : depth graph, and we can see there's based on our Git branch, our current branch, and what we're comparing it to. We can see here it defaults to base master and head is head. So in this branch we're working against, there was a change made inside of this front end auth lib, and we can trace it up and see, well, it affected this to-dos web client as well as the end-to-end test that was governing both the web client and the to-dos API. So it's cool. I mean, this is still visualization, being able to see what projects are actually affected by a PR, for example. But going beyond that, we can actually run affected using different builders like testing or linting or building. So we can actually only need to test or build the different projects that are actually affected by changes we make, which leads to really cool performance improvements in terms of like your CI pipeline or just your local working pipeline. You don't need to remember, okay, which libs do I have to make sure I test before I PR this. You can just run nx affected test and make sure they all pass, and without like testing the whole world. So the next step is going into computation caching. So affected kind of is smarts inside of nx to know, okay, which stuff did I mess with. Computation caching is sort of like having a history of all the nx commands you've run in the past, and what the source code looked like at that time. So locally, if we do this, we can maybe run a build on our to-dos app, kind of like the example we were seeing in the previous slide. And the first time we do this, we actually go through and build out everything. It takes us a few seconds. And this is just a small app, so it only takes 3 seconds. But normally builds can take several minutes at times. But if we were to run the same command again without like changing any of our source code, NX would actually tell, oh, well, source code hasn't changed since the last time we ran this. So we can actually just pull the output of this command from the last time you ran it. And you'll see the timestamp here is actually exactly the same, even though this was run several minutes later. And yeah, like the result of this build is still in our side of our distributed folder, and it's still all good. Like we just pulled things out of memory. We sacrificed space for time by building a local cache, and it's a really good trade to make since space is really cheap. And going into that, like you can take this to another level. In addition to just having this on your local machine, you can also have a distributed cache, and we offer this as a service via NX Cloud, where you're able to take your local cache and push it up to a cloud and share it across all of your developers, all your fellow developers. All of your CI pipelines can all like share this cache, so you can make sure you only build stuff for a given source code once, which is super powerful in terms of like cutting down your CI times and just making working on your stuff more seamless. So if, for example, if a friend of yours submits a PR where they've already run a build and they want you to take a look at it, you can just pull it down, run your build command. It will actually take the output that they generated on their machine. So you never actually have to run the build yourself. You just kind of download the artifact it created from the cloud. And there's also some other cool integrations like with NX Cloud, like this one from GitHub, GitHub plugin where it will show for a PR all the targets that ran as a result of the CI process, and it'll show you how, in this case, they're all passing. And if you click on the links here, you'll also be taken to the NX Cloud web app, where it'll tell you like the actual cached output in terms of the command line terminal that you see here, and you'll be able to easily share that between your developers as well. So if something's failing, you want to know why, and you want to get some help, you can just send a link and kind of look at, okay, hey, why is this failing? So really cool stuff. The last piece of the puzzle is the NX console here, which is a VS Code plugin. You'll see on the left-hand side where all my plugins are at. Here's the NX one. If I skip ahead a little bit, too far. Okay, yeah, so if I skip ahead a little bit, I can run generate, and this will show me all the different schematics I have at my disposal to be able to run. I'll select the one I want to build an Angular application, and this will give me like a nice form control for all the different options I could possibly have for running this, which is super helpful if you forget an option and you want to remember what it is. So that's super cool. In addition to that pane, we also have common NX commands. So for example, affected, we'll run affected here. We could actually copy that output if we want to run it in our own terminal, and it'll actually run it. This is actually a native terminal for us on my Mac, and you can also see in this pane down here, you can search by project and be able to find the different targets available for each project. In this case, we ran the test command simply by clicking on it, and you'll see, again, it ran it here. You can copy that if you want to copy it again, and it'll actually run it in the terminal. And my test failed here, actually, because this is from a side project, and I don't actually write my unit tests. But yeah, so that's the NX console, which is great for discoverability and for convenience of not having to remember all the different things of the CLI. And this will work, the NX console will work with just the Angular CLI as well. So super nice for being able to discover all the different options and the convenience of not having to remember them. And also if you just prefer a GUI to a command line interface. So last step is just going to talk about developing, empowering developers and empowering the community, and some sort of where the NX philosophy takes us. So core to the philosophies of NX is human is the most important OS. A huge part of being human is using tools. Like that's kind of what separated humans out from the rest of the animals out there. Is we love using tools, and it's helped us a lot. It's part of who we are, and NX being a tool set clearly falls into that category. But also being engaged, and being engaged specifically in the work you won't need to be engaged in, and not the other stuff like, well, how does Webpack work again? How do I install Jest? Cypress looks really cool, but how do I configure it all? Or Storybook, how does that all work? NX kind of makes all those things trivial for you, so you can be engaged seamlessly, and like all these tools are an extension of yourself without even thinking about it. I'm focused on my work. I'm not focused on my tools. And also just enjoying your work, which is highly underrated, I think, in terms of like how important this is to increasing our efficiency by a factor of n. We need to enjoy our work. And I think NX really empowers me personally, at least, to do it. And hopefully you'll find that as well. So taking advantage of the time we're in too. Like this is a huge part of the NX philosophy. So open source software. In some previous time that our engineers had their tool sets that they painstakingly built up, and it maybe separated them from everyone else, and they were super protective of it, and there's only so much that could be built, and they had spent a lot of resources to build it, and they couldn't build another one. It was part of the magic of open source and software is that we can like create one and freely distribute it as many X times. If we can build it once, we can just build it X times, and you can have it for free. Like, go take it, and it actually benefits us from you being able to take it down and see what you like about it, what don't you like about it, what does it need. There's a drawer missing. Maybe you can help contribute to that. This is like super cool, and it's like very unique to the time we're in. Also, like with the pandemic we're in the middle of right now, just seeing how little some of the companies I've been working with are affected by this. It's super cool to see that, but also to know that like NX is, building off of this. Many of our engineers are, in other countries across the seas in South America. It's really cool to see that. So, and to see different contributors to NX come in and benefit from their perspective on the matter. And yeah, how connected the development community is. I think that kind of goes hand in hand. But yeah, the thing about fire is it spreads. So if this is super interesting to you, or it seems interesting, we've got step-by-step tutorials available on nx.dev. There's a free course available on nxplaybook.com. We have regular NX office hours that I co-host on occasion. I think I may be hosting a few episodes by myself soon. And we also have the NX community Slack available. You can find that on nx.dev as well. And if you really like what we're doing here, one of the best ways you can contribute is by creating your own drawer for us to share with the broader community by creating a community plugin. And there's some docs for this on NX.dev as well. So if you liked all this stuff, make sure you check out nx.dev. That's kind of the core where you can find links to all the other stuff we've mentioned. Make sure you check out NX Cloud because it's a really cool product I think that we're offering. If you like the stuff that NX provides and you want to take it to that next level. So it's kind of like supercharging, putting some rockets onto your workspace box there, I guess. And if you like the talk, if you like me, you can feel free to follow me on Twitter. I talk a lot about, everything. But I talk a lot about, reactive programming, working with people, working with teams, all this kind of cool stuff. So follow me there and check me out on Twitch. I stream a couple times a week these days at twitch.tv/Zack DeRose. So cool. Thanks, everyone.